Hello, this is Stephen Jufusa. This is a video version of Wet Lunch on the High Seas. I apologize for a long absence. I've had a lot going on work wise, but also I've been following, as many of my listeners have, the final tow of the SS United States. I was unfortunately not able to be in Philadelphia when the ship departed for the final time after 30 years at her dock. I had an appointment in New York. I was recording a episode of the Gilded Gentleman podcast with the wonderful host Carl Raymond. That was a long-standing appointment, but I have been following the voyage, and I am particularly grateful to the captain of the Vinnick Six, Mike Vinnick, for his spectacular photographs that were sent uh, to a friend of mine, David Silver, who then passed them along to me. And it was amazing to see how these photos have gone absolutely viral. And now that this ship is on her final journey, she is capturing the imagination of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who now realize, as the song goes, Big Yellow Taxi, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And whatever the fate of the ship might be, it looks like it's pretty nigh sealed right now. I think that the American public will now realize that this ship is a national treasure. And they now realize that a ship like this, especially when put up against modern day cruise ships, there's that spectacular photograph of her sailing past the Utopia of the seas, and the captain of the Utopia uh, saluted the ship and allowed his passengers to gaze upon the ship off the coast of Miami. And in despite of her decrepit state, people were just in awe of it. We don't see ships like this anymore. And as Tom Linsky, a part-time explorer, said when he stood on the shores of New Jersey watching the ship disappear in the night, all lit up. He said, "What's really sad is that this is just a foretaste, or just a small taste, of what something we used to be able to experience, seeing these magnificent liners come and go uh, in all their beauty from American ports, especially New York City. And cruise ships today just don't have that sort of power. They just don't. They don't have that kind of mystique. And for the first time in decades, a whole generation of Americans realized what these ships truly meant, what made these Atlantic liners special. The SS United States is due to arrive in Mobile, Alabama, in a few days after a truly history-making final voyage. And I've received so many uh, emails and so many phone calls about my thoughts of the ship. And my feeling is that this is the final chapter. It's over. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a miracle. But I have also posted a series of vintage films, many of which were put up by my former fellow conservancy board member, Mark Perry. And people have just been astonished at this, seeing how shipboard life 60, 70 years ago, how different it was. And the things I'd like to point out, the most notable difference is the absence of screens. This is the way before the digital era. The only way you could communicate with shore when traveling on a transatlantic crossing on the SS United States was ship-to-shore phone. Now, every stateroom on the SS United States, all 600 of them or so, were equipped with a phone. But the problem is that it cost a lot of money to call on the ship. And so most people, pretty much everyone, enjoyed the voyage, was present for the moment. And people read in the library, they played shuffleboard, they met new friends, they spent time with their families, provided they weren't seasick. That was not a very pleasant experience. The ship was not stabilized. But another difference was the three-class setup. That's something that's foreign to us. And another difference is just the formality of it. Even in tourist class for dinner, people got dressed up. Traveling was an event. And that's something that's also been lost. So as the SS United States prepares for the final chapter, where she's going to be sunk as an artificial reef, it's not the outcome I would have wanted, or most lovers of history would have wanted. It's pretty tragic. But I'm convinced that if William Francis Gibbs was alive today and saw the condition that his beloved ship was in, first of all, most ocean liners are only meant to last 30 or so years before they're sent to the scrapyard. The United States only was in service for 17 years, which was tragically cut short by labor unrest and the jet aircraft. Uh, but the fact that she's been around for over 70 is pretty astonishing. But I think William Francis Gibbs, if he was to look upon his dream ship now, I'm pretty sure he would say, let her go. And I think that's unfortunately something that we all have to come to grips with. And that the ship will live on in memory, in books, in films. And we could look back at that era and what led to the ship's creation and take inspiration for our own lives of how to follow our own dreams, as William Francis Gibbs did against really terrible odds. And he was an unlikely person to be America's greatest naval architect. He would say that I never would have amounted to anything if my father had not gone bankrupt. I would like to read a short chapter from or section of my book, A Man and a Ship, which is, I'm really deeply appreciative to the many new fans of this book who have come out of the woodwork over the past few weeks. And for the next year, the SS United States is going to be, what's left of her is going to be decontaminated, stripped down, and prepared for her final role as an artificial reef. It's, I guess you could almost say, sorry to sound morbid, is a bit of an embalming. But I'd like to read a short section about when she was being built and about her interiors, which are long gone, but were the epitome of mid-century glamour and modernity. And also a little known fact is that the ship's interior was designed by an all-woman design firm that did work on the SS United States' predecessor, the SS America. Was also a very popular firm for high society in the 1940s and 1950s. Vincent Astor was a big patron of Dorothy Markwald. But I'd like to read about the construction of the ship's interiors, which were finished in 1952 in time for her maiden voyage, and sadly have been scattered to the winds. The United States would remain at the outfitting pier for another 10 months. Here, another small army of craftsmen, artists, electricians, and plumbers would transform the bare mechanical shell into a luxury liner fit to carry the world's most discerning travelers, or as some would later joke, into the world's most luxurious troop ship. For the past 2 years, Dorothy Markwald and her team had been carefully scrutinizing the reams of blueprints churned out by Gibbs and Cox and interior architect Eggers and Higgins. We would get preliminary sketches from Eggers and Higgins, her partner Anne Markwald recalled, and then we would make our preliminary drawings, suggesting colors and styles. The New Yorker could not wait to turn her team loose on the bare steel and aluminum bulkheads. She had designs ready for 23 public rooms, 395 staterooms, and 14 special first-class suites. They had their work cut out for them. Gibbs told Markwald that he had to okay every piece of furniture, bolt of drapery, and square foot of carpet. He also said that the ship's public rooms and cabins had to be spacious, cheerful, and modern, and uncluttered, furnished with lightweight and durable furniture. And there was to be absolutely no wood used in the ship's interior. The greatest danger in war or peace and big ships, William Francis Gibbs said, is the danger of fire. As a result, luxury would take a backseat to fireproofing and weight saving. The ship was to be comfortable, to be sure, especially in first class, but Gibbs had learned the lessons of the Leviathan project. Since this ship was to be paid for by taxpayer dollars, nothing about the ship could appear frivolous, opulent, or overdone. Accordingly, all artwork and decorations had to be based on an American or nautical theme, preferably both. There were also to be no sculptures of marble or bronze, as they would add unnecessary weight to the ship. Unlike land-based decorators who worked with flat floors and vertical walls, a naval interior designer had to deal with a ship's sheer and camber. Sheer was the upward slant of the decks towards the bow and stern. Camber was the downward slant of the decks away from the ship's center line. Because of this, door frames, paneling, and even furniture had to be custom-made for each ship. In her studio, Markwald jokingly called the ship's sheer and camber its and umph, respectively. Markwald was not fazed by the demands of the United States Commission. She had prospered by giving her affluent clients a sophisticated modernist aesthetic. Business at Smith, Urquhart, and Markwald was booming, flush with interior design work on Park Avenue apartments, Long Island mansions, and private yachts. Among her recent commissions was the redecoration of New York's lavish St. Regis Hotel, built by Vincent Astor's father, Titanic victim Colonel John Jacob Astor IV. Her interiors for America, with their polished brass murals and bright colors, met with near universal praise from the traveling public. Excited about the biggest commission of her career, she and her partner whipped up color schemes even before the keel of the United States was laid. Quick and snappy, Markwell told the reporter when asked to sum up her ethos. What followed was a game of give and take with Gibbs, who spent countless hours making sure the ship's exterior lines were sensuous and beautiful, but had a surprisingly utilitarian view about how she would look inside. Markwald and Urquhart got to work selecting furniture and color schemes. They quickly ran into trouble when it came to upholstery and draperies. Gibbs kept vetoing their selections. No sponge rubber in the seat cushions, for example. A stray cigarette could ignite it. After much haggling, the team decided to use a synthetic fabric called Dynel. To brighten the material, Markwell decided to have metallic threads, such as real silver and gold, woven between the strands. It was non-absorbent and, above all, fireproof. In addition, paint schemes on thin metal strips were heated to 2,300 degrees to make sure they were not flammable. On February 17, 1950, he had Markwell design subjected to what he thought was the most important test. A full-size stateroom model was constructed at the National Bureau of Standards test facility. The model was furnished with all of the interior elements planned for the ship. Dino-clad chairs, metal chests of drawers and bedsteads, flame-retardant sheets and linens, aluminum walls clad in asbestos-infused maronite panels. Finally, workers lugged in suitcases stuffed with the sorts of flammable baggage that passengers usually kept in their staterooms. Clothing, perfume, cologne, books, and magazine. Testers opened a suitcase and set it on fire. Gibbs watched through the plate glass as the fire leapt from the suitcase and began spreading. The thermometer crept up as flames engulfed the entire room, reaching 1,300 degrees Fahrenheit. Reflections of the flames danced in spectacle lenses. Finally, the fire burnt itself out. The room was a mess. Markwold's fabrics were scorched and the maronite-clad aluminum bulkheads blackened. But the fire had been contained and Gibbs was pleased with the performance of Markwold's use of materials. You can go into your stateroom and pile your luggage in the middle and set a match to it, and when you come back in 3 hours, it would have burnt out, Gibbs said. The room will be black with smoke, but not even the curtains will be burned, he added. The test demonstrated, Gibbs concluded, that the provisions for bulkheading followed in connection with the subject vessel appeared to be satisfactory, but no relaxation of insulation requirements was indicated. Then there were the pianos, which were to be custom built for the ship by Steinway and Sons. Gibbs began pestering Steinway to build aluminum frame pianos for the ship's lounges. Theodor Steinway, president of the august German-American manufacturing firm, put his foot down, not wanting his name on them. No metal piano, no matter how well designed, would have the same resonant tone as one made out of wood. After a flurry of letters and phone calls, an exasperated Steinway asked William Francis Gibbs to come to a demonstration. Steinway trotted out a gleaming concert grand of the type that would be used in the first-class ballroom, doused it with gasoline, and threw a match on it. The gasoline burned, but the piano did not. Gibbs relented and allowed several wooden Steinways to come aboard. This helped foster a popular boast about the ship. The only wood to be found on board was to be found in the butcher's block and the pianos. This was not quite true. There were a few other splinters here and there, Thomas Boorman admitted. Among the other splinters were the Oregon pine that filled the bilge keels and the lignum vitae lining the 4 propeller shafts. Native to Florida and the Bahamas, lignum vitae was often used for cricket mallets and for croquet mallets and cricket balls. Dense, self-lubricating, and resistant to rot, it had long been used to line propeller shafts. Despite all the advances in marine technology during World War II, no one had come up with a material that could match its durability. And since the bilge keels and propeller shafts would be soaked with seawater, Gibbs conceded that they could not catch fire. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wet Lunch on the High Seas podcast. Please be sure to check out my book, A Man and a Ship. That was written in 2012. I'm very grateful that there's been a whole new group of readers who are now picking up this book. And please do everything you can to learn about the SS United States and this amazing era in American history that she represented. She cannot be built again. No ship like her will ever be seen again. And please enjoy your last looks at this marvelous ship as a whole vessel on her last voyage. Once again, I am grateful and very thankful for the respect that Vinnick Marine and photographers such as Mike Vinnick, her captain, have uh, shown these images of the ship at sea to the public. I think that now people see how magnificent she is underway in her natural element. They now realize why the ship is so special. Thank you so much. This is Wet Lunch on the High Seas with historian Stephen Ujifusa.